Hello everybody and welcome to the channel Out of Ammo, Out of Time. I'm your host as always, Krabby Terror 8, and I'm so excited because here we are back in Season 1, yes, Episode 48 of Season 1 of the Investigator Games with the new Scarlet Keys Investigators ready to roll, and here they all are, and we're kicking off in Episode 48 with everybody's favourite doctor and medic, Vincent Lee, yes, and for those of you who are new to the channel, welcome. I'm still here 5 years later, still playing. Has anybody played The Gathering and the Midnight Mass more than I have? I'm not sure, but anyway, people said I couldn't keep doing it, but I'm here and I'm still going and I'm still loving it, so I'm so glad to be back now. Apologies if I said I wasn't going to do this till April. I couldn't wait that long, so I was able to make sure things were okay on Arkham DB and Octagon, so I'm here ready to roll, as I said. Now, for those of you who are new to the channel, welcome. What is the Investigator Games? Well, it's like the Squid Games, I guess. We take each investigator true solo through a scenario, and in Season 1, that is The Gathering, and in Season 2, that is the Midnight Masks, and we see how they go. And depending on how they go, they end up in a league table like this one. Yes, and we can see all the investigators are on here, all of them, all 47 of them, soon to be 48, from very top all the way down to the bottom. Now, what happens is, depending on how they go in Season 1, those points carry over into Season 2, into the Midnight Masks. And then, of course, once we've done that, once we've gone through the Scarlet Keys Investigators in Season 2, we will then begin Season 3, The Devourer Below. Can you believe it? I never thought we would get to Season 3, but we will get to Season 3 probably this year at some stage, you know, if I can find the time to do this, because we have to do about 8 or 9 episodes, maybe 10, so it might be another year, but we will get to The Devourer Below. Yes, so now spoilers, if you are brand new to Arkham Horror the card game, I would suggest you seek out other sources of information. I'm assuming you know how to play a little bit, but I also recognize that people come here to check out how these investigators play and how they do. So there's a real focus on each of them. And of course, all the previous investigators are all there to have a look at as well. Some of the very early videos I did in Season 1 for Roland, they're a little bit ropey in terms of the sound. And I sound a little bit low key, but I've gotten better over time. So check those out. I also have an in-depth video on The Gathering. Everything you would ever want to know, lore, story, gameplay, strategy, everything. Me and some other content creators have put that together, so I would definitely recommend that as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through Vincent Lee in terms of his stat line and his abilities and whatnot, and then we will go through the deck that I've put together. Now, in the earlier days of Arkham Horror the card game, Fantasy Flight Games actually provided starter decks as a starter deck list. They no longer do that as far as I'm aware. So what happens is that the decks for each of these investigators is basically the starter, the base game cards, and also the cards from the expansion. So for this set of investigators like Vincent, they can draw from base game and they can draw from Scarlet Keys in terms of creating a starter deck, and we will look at that in detail in a moment. But before we do, let's kick off and look at Vincent Lee's stats and abilities. So And this is really my first time looking at them as well. So I do this also just so I know what I'm doing and familiarizes me with them as well. And I've done so many of these, I forget what they all do. I can barely remember most of them. But anyway, we'll see how we go. So if we look here at his stat line, he is a seeker. So as we would expect, we have a pretty high intellect. So actually 3 willpower, 4 intellect, 3 fight, and 1 agility. So not 3 fight, 3 strength. You know what I mean? I call it fight sometimes, but 3 strength. So actually this is a pretty good stat line overall. He's supposed to be obviously a seeker, so he's got a fairly healthy intellect of 4. Willpower and strength are also fairly respectable at 3, which means he's okay when drawing encounter cards and okay to fight as well, which makes him pretty good from a seeker perspective. Seekers don't often have good strength stats. Obviously, his agility stat is very low, so evasion is not going to be his thing. It's not going to be his bag. So really, if you're going to be facing off against enemies, better to fight than try and evade is the way to go, obviously. I think just based on this, just if we leave agility aside, but if we have a look at his other parts of his stat line, I think that makes him reasonably well-rounded in terms of being a true solo investigator. Obviously, he's fine as a specialist in terms of being a seeker who can fight a bit in a multiplayer, which is always handy because seekers sometimes are a bit useless when it comes to fighting, so they need to be rescued by their colleagues. But most of the time, Vincent can probably be getting the clues and also holding his own if he needs to against enemies that might spawn from the encounter deck. So pretty good solo, pretty good multiplayer. And also, he is kind of geared in a way, I suppose, to multiplayer, although it can work in true solo as well. But his ability is a reaction trigger that after one of your card effects heals damage from an investigator or an investigator's ally asset. So one of your card effects has to be. Then you add one of the set aside on the men skills to that investigator's hand. Now, it's that investigator's hand. Now, obviously, in true solo, that's yourself, obviously, but in a multiplayer game, that doesn't necessarily have to be yourself. So that's quite handy. Here is on the mend here. I'll just show you what it is. Essentially, it's a skill with two willpower, 2 wildcard pips, which is very handy. You've got limit of 1 in your hand. You can commit it to a test you are performing, so you can't do what you can do often if you're at the same location as someone else and throw in a card. It has to be for you. When on the men would be discarded, set it aside out of play. So it's a really nice card. And it scales, so these are available. So if there are 4 players, there are 4 of them available. If there's 1 player, there's 1 of them available. So it's a really nice way of supporting other investigators. So very supportive in that way. So that's really nice effect. So like I said, I mean, obviously you can use it on yourself, which we will be doing if we need to. But also it makes Vincent Lee a fairly strong multiplayer because not only can he find clues, he can fight a bit, but also he can heal people and support them in that way. So a very strong all-round character from that perspective as well. Really good. His Elder Sign effect is +1. That's just standard. But you also get to heal a damage from an investigator or an ally asset at your location. I really like the addition of the ally asset because, we're often soaking damage through allies, and so being able to keep them on the board for longer is most welcome if it needs to be. So there's some nice flexibility there as well. I will find the answers even if it kills me. And speaking of that, very robust health. Vincent Lee, 9 health. So he can take a lot of physical damage. And of course, usually a Vincent Lee deck is going to have ways to heal as well. So Yes, so you would expect that. And then a 6 in terms of mental strength, so a little bit on the lowish side on that. So that's probably where the most weakness is for him. Is 6 is a little bit on the lowish side. That can get chewed up very quickly without ways to soak that up. So there we go. That's Vincent Lee. Pretty good, pretty good. I like how he's been designed. If we just turn his card over and have a look at the back, it's a standard deck size. Seeker cards, neutral cards, 0 to 5. Cards that heal damage, 0 to 5, and up to 15 other Guardian and or Survivor cards, level 0 to 1. So yeah, you can have quite a range of cards here. So there's quite good deck building options there. Obviously, mainly a Guardian Seeker, which is a really good combination because it allows him to fight. And as I said, in True Solo, it allows you to fight, but also find clues. So for True Solo, that's great. And then, as we said, for multiplayer, that's also really helpful. You get a Bone Saw. We'll talk about these cards. 1 per Investigator copies of On the Mend, so it's a 4-player. There's 4 of them, etc. A Wounded Bystander and a Random Basic Weakness. We'll get onto that. You begin play with 1 per Investigator copies of On the Mend set aside out of play. So we have 1 copy out of play. Yes, so that's good. So yeah, pretty good. Some flexibility there in terms of what you can put into his hand. So here's his backstory. After the 3rd or 4th mutilated body showed up during his time at St. Mary's Hospital in Arkham, Vincent Lee began to suspect that these were not mere wild animal attacks. When a young man died screaming in his sleep from a burst heart, Vincent knew for a fact that dark times were ahead. Taking a leave of absence from his position at the hospital, he has set out to ease the suffering of those afflicted by the spreading chaos, hoping that the trail of bodies will lead him to the answers he craves. So there we go. Yeah, that's Vincent Lee for you. Okay, so let's have a look at his the deck that I put together. As I said before, it's drawing from the base game and the Scarlet Keys. And in this case, I've also chosen cards which make thematic sense. It made sense to choose some of those, even if I only use them for to commit to things, rather than purely, just cards in general. So you'll see that in what I've put together here. So yes, we've got a copy of On the Mend in there, which there is 1 copy set aside, which we can trigger if we heal damage, if we need to. So basically, like we said, it's a skill card with 2 wild card pips on it, and you're only allowed 1 in your hand at any time. His special card or signature card is the Bone Saw, which is a 3-cost asset. Has the usual 3 pips on the side, intellect, fight, and a wild card. It's an item and a tool. So that's important to know if you're using things like backpack, things like that. So if you have this, it takes up a hand slot. You can use it to fight. You get +2 for the attack. And if the attack is successful, you may take 1 damage and deal +1 damage for this attack. So there's a really nice synergy there. I'm not sure from a sort of story type perspective how that's really working. I suppose you're kind of using it, but maybe it's quite dangerous, so you're damaging yourself or something. I'm not sure. But anyway, it allows you to take a damage, and of course Vincent can tank quite a lot of damage in that way, and you can get a +1 damage, so that's nice. You can then heal 5 damage from an investigator at your location. If you test, then you take an intellect test of 4, and if you fail, that investigator suffers a physical trauma, maximum once per game. So as long as you're able to make sure that you've got the intellect to do that, That's a really nice way of healing, and of course that triggers your healing effect to bring out on the men. So there's a nice synergy with all of that. A really nice card, again, really, really nicely designed. But you can only do that once a game. So essentially you're kind of performing triage on somebody. It could be yourself, if you're really getting a bit low on health. So great card. Bonesaw. Now, signature weakness is interesting. It's a wounded bystander who is on death's doorstep. So he's an ally. It's an ally weakness. So you put that into play, into your play area. Interestingly, it doesn't take up a ally slot, which is good, with 3 damage on it. Cannot leave play while it has damage, unless it's defeated. If it has no damage on it, discard it. So there's kind of 2 ways to go here. You can obviously heal this wounded bystander, or you can allow the wounded bystander to die. Now, obviously the way you would heal the wounded bystander is using, your healing cards to do that. Forced, when you take non-direct damage, at least one of it must be assigned to wounded bystander if able. So basically, as long as it's not direct damage, which has to go on you, you've got to put at least one. You've got to assign 1 to the wounded bystander. So, I mean, I guess in a way it is tanking you some some damage, but the wounded bystander is starting with 3 damage. So it would only take a couple of those for the wounded bystander to die. If the wounded bystander is defeated, you suffer a mental trauma. So, so you've then got yourself a mental trauma to carry on, and you've only got 6 mental strength as it is, so you'll then be carrying that through a campaign in that way. So not great. You probably want to deal with the wounded bystander if you possibly can. So yes, yeah, that's the weakness. Now the random basic weakness we drew was drawing the sign, which is you put it in your threat area. Your maximum hand size is reduced by 5, so from 8 to 3, right? And you can discard it with 2 draws. I mean, that is usually more punishing to Seekers, often, because Seekers are looking to draw cards. Not so much Vincent, though. So, I mean, it's okay. It depends. Sometimes it's frivolous because it doesn't matter. It comes later in the game and you've not got that many cards in your hand anyway. It can be bad if you've got a handful of cards and you're just about to take on the Ghoul Priest, for example, something like that, and you get it then. So yeah, it just depends when it turns up. Sometimes it's frivolous and sometimes it's really bad news. So it's really hard to know. So there we go. So that's the sort of all the key kind of cards there. So we just have a look at what other cards we put in there. We've got a bunch of cards which I said are sort of thematic to Vincent. And here's one of them. This is one of the new cards from the Scarlet Keys. It's called Bizarre Diagnosis. It is a 0 cost event. It has 2 intellect pips on it. So even if I'm not using it to do what you do with this, it's helpful in getting clues, if nothing else. So place 1 of your clues on your location, then heal 3 damage from an investigator or ally asset at your location. So it's a healing effect. So, and of course that then triggers Vincent Lee's special ability, which would then allow you to add a set aside on the men's skill, if you like, right? So you can see the synergy there. This next card is called Dissection Tools. I really like this card. It reminds me very much of the Hawkeye folding camera in terms of its effect. But again, thematically, it's great for Vincent. So this is a 2-cost asset, takes up a hand slot. It has a reaction trigger. After an enemy at your location is defeated, place 1 resource on this card as evidence. While Dissection Tools has 1 or more evidence, you get +1 to your agility, which is welcome. If it has 2 or more, you also get fight, and then 3 or more +1 sanity. So a really nice effect. I really like this card. So good one to have. Takes up a hand slot though, so yeah, might find that hand slots are a bit of a premium for old Vincent. Speaking of which, we've got medical texts here. This card's been around for a long time. Not a particularly popular card at all, but it felt like a thing to put into a Vincent Lee deck. It's a 2-cost asset. It's a tome. It has a fight pip, so that can be handy in the fight situation, even if nothing else. It has a action. Choose an investigator at your location and test 2 intellect. If you succeed, heal 1 damage from that investigator. If you fail, deal 1 damage to that investigator. So, yeah. I mean, 2 intellect. You're already 2 up with Vincent, so it shouldn't be too bad to do. It takes up a hand slot as well, so probably, I mean, it's a way of... it's like an engine so that you can keep getting your on the mends, I suppose, but maybe use more for fighting. Also, then, so those are sort of the thematic cards that we have around medicine and healing and those sorts of things. Then if we get into more of the hardcore seeker clue getting cards, we've got a couple of magnifying glasses. Why wouldn't we? It's a fast action to put them out, gives you +1 while investigating, and getting clues is always critical, particularly in true solo, because without the clues we ain't going anywhere. And in the Investigator games, the faster we do things, the higher up the table we can be. Therefore, we also have deduction in there, because that allows us to get an additional clue, so we can just speed things up, and then the good old perception. So your classic cards for seekers to grab their clues. Now on the flip side, in terms of fighting, because with Guardian, we've got a couple of .45 automatics. Take up a hand slot, spend an ammo, fight, you get +1 damage, and of course the good old machete. We're not playing taboo here, so +1 for this attack. If the attacked enemy is the only enemy engaged with you, you get +1. So the problem with the machete is if you've got multiple enemies at the same time, you lose that. So that's not helpful. And we've also got a couple of vicious blows for obvious reasons. We can really bring some pain, particularly to the Ghoul Priest, and finish him off quickly. We've got that in place. And then, of course, a couple of overpowers, which just allow us to boost our skills and commit those and draw a card in the process. So, yeah, pretty standard in that way. Now, we've also got a sort of a little sub-engine going on here we've got our ally, Dr. Malign Christopher. Again, we're not playing taboo. He's perfect in Seeker decks. You get +1 to your intellect, so we get him out. We're running at a 5. If we investigate successfully, we gain a resource. And so what I've done is with that, we should then be getting lots of resources, which means we then have the resources to fuel hyper-awareness, which is a 2-cost asset, which allows you to spend resources to get more intellect or +1 agility, which would be most welcome. Or physical training, which gives us +1 willpower and +1 fight. So you can imagine where you've got Malign Christopher making more money, and then you've got hyper-awareness and physical training out. You should be able to pass most skill tests as you need them. And then just to finish off the deck, we've got a couple of guts and a couple of unexpected courages, pretty standard stuff. So there we go. That's the deck. Don't know, what do you think? I think it's pretty good. Pretty happy with it. I think no reason why, given the mix of fighting and clue getting, that Vincent should be a pretty strong contender for the Investigator games. There we go. Now, I had a chat to Vincent in the green room before we started this. We had a good chat about some things. Yeah, I've had this sort of painful knee for a while. Probably been running a bit too much, so I got him to check that out. He recommended I was a bit worried at first. I thought he was going to pull out the bone saw and recommend an amputation, but no, he recommended some physiotherapy on that. So thank you, Vincent. He's given me a good recommendation to a good physio. So I do appreciate that. I asked him about how he thinks he's going to go in the Investigator Games. He's very determined. He is very determined to take down that Ghoul Priest and get things done as quickly as possible. He knows Leader Chandler not well. He knows her, he knows her enough to say hi in the corridors of the Investigator Games and things like that. But he's hoping that Leader Chandler is somebody that he can gain as an ally, and they can move forward into the Midnight Masks, and that would be certainly helpful and certainly increase things for him in terms of his ability to fight. So he's fairly hopeful about that as well. So there we go. All good, all good. So here we are. We're all set up here in Octagon, ready to go here with the study. Now, I've just put out the other cards, not because you're supposed to do that at the beginning. I'm just doing that simply just to save time, because really just the study disappears, and then we've just got the attic, hallway, cellar, and the good old parlor. So yeah, pretty standard to set out, of course. So we'll just read the act and the agenda, and then we will wait for the horn to go off to begin. So, Agenda 1A, what's going on? It's late at night, and you're holed up in your study, researching the bloody disappearances that have been taking place in the region. A few hours into your research, you hear the sound of strange chanting coming from your parlor down the hall. At the same time, you hear dirt churning as if something were digging beneath the floor. And trapped. As you leap to investigate, well, with an agility of 1, I would probably say, as you get up slowly to investigate, the door to your study vanishes before your eyes, leaving behind only solid wall. You're trapped inside your study until you can find another way out. So we have to get 2 clues to get out of the study. We are playing in, of course, standard. We are all ready to go with our 5 resources. Yeah, Vincent is walking around the study. He's got his medical bag with him. People filed in and they're waiting quietly and chatter around the place to watch how he goes in. Oh, and there goes the horn! And the crowd goes wild. And Vincent waves at the crowd with a slight smile on his face, his medical bag in hand. How's he going to do? We'll find out in episode 48 of Season 1 of the Investigator Games. Okay, so let's shuffle up. What do we want? What do we want? What do we want? Well, we do want Milan Christopher. We can get him in early. That's going to be super helpful. Having the magnifying glass and other ways to investigate would also be helpful, and a weapon. So a machete or a gun, anything like that. Those are the things that we're really looking for at the beginning. So let's draw many. Let's draw 5 and see what we get. And okay, well, straight off the bat, we've got both of the 45 automatic and the machete. So that's good. I don't know that we need both. And then we've got the medical tech. So no Milan Christopher here. So I'm going to be quite aggressive here, and I'm going to throw all these 4 in, and I'm going to draw another 4 because I want to try and draw into Milan. There he is. 2, 3, hyper awareness. 4. No, we can't have him. 4 on the mend. 5. 2 hyper awareness. Well, is there a plural for hyper awareness? I don't know. Anyway, hyper awarenesses. So there we go. So that's good. We've got Milan Christopher there. We've got the machete. We've got a hyper awareness, which allows us to do some extra stuff once we get the engine going. We got an on the mend, which is great. We can only have 1 in our hand. And there's 1 set aside. So there we go. And then we got another hyper awareness, which wasn't ideal. But we've got these key things. The only thing we're kind of missing is more ways to like deductions and things like that, which would just speed things up. But you know what? That's a pretty good start. So, yep, pretty happy with all of that. So let's get going. So what are we going to do? Well, I think our first action is to spend 4, obviously. And we will bring out Milan Christopher. Okay. So that's our first action. So now we're now essentially investigating at a 5. Yeah. Hold on. 4, not 1. Ah, dear. If only that were the case. We've got 1 resource, not... Okay, so we can't bring out the machete yet. So I think what we do is we go ahead and investigate the study and get some more money. So we are running at a 5 versus a 2, so we're 3 up. Let's investigate. Chaos Bag gives us a -2. Sorry, -1. I'm thinking Midnight Mask. -1, so we succeed because we're running at a 5. Yep, so we get that clue. And we'll go again, and we will investigate again. Oh, and we get an auto fail. Dear, that clue in that study. Where is it, Vincent? You thought you'd find it with Milan. You found the first one, but couldn't find the second one. Oh, dear, oh, dear. There we go. So that's the first. Oh, and we forgot to get the resource, didn't we? Easy to forget. So we get a resource as well. So there we go. So first round, pretty good. We brought out Milan Christopher. We then investigated the study successfully and gained a resource, and then we auto-failed. So next time we'll get out of the study and we can get moving. So yeah, not too bad. Pretty good start. Okay, so let's move into the enemy phase, yes, or the enema phase, so I like to call it, and there are no enemies or enemas to speak of. So let's move into the upkeep phase, and we get overpower. Okay, cool. Yeah, so we got to start building a case for taking on the Ghoul Priest. And we definitely are moving in that direction. The other thing I'm thinking is we do need to get hyper awareness out with some money, because what would be good is if we can evade the Ghoul Priest and then go and get Leader Chandler and then come back and finish him off. That would be ideal in that way. Otherwise, we're kind of not really going to be able to evade the Ghoul Priest, really. So there we go, there's upkeep. But anyway, before we move on to that, we're into the Mythos phase. The first Doom is down. Let's see what the good old encounter deck has. Let's just shuffle up the encounter deck just to make sure it's nice and shuffled. And what do we get? We get... Ooh, hello. Oh, a swarm of rats. Well, we get a swarm of rats. There we go. In the study. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough, we might be in the study a little bit longer than we thought. Yes. Now, just on that, if we'd had 2 clues, which we don't, but if we'd had 2 clues, we could just go ahead, and this is why you always wait until the next scenario, till the next turn. We could have thrown in the clues and the rats would have disappeared with the study, but that's not the case in this case. So anyway, there we go. Let's move into the investigation phase 3 actions. On to Vincent. So what are we going to do here? Well, it's pretty clear what we're going to do. We're going to kill these rats. So we are a 4 and they are a 1. Yep. So 4 versus 1. Let's see how we go. We're just going to punch the rats. And we get another another cultist, -1. So, yep, we kill the rats. The rats are dead. Yay! There we go. Okay, so that's good. Second action, let's go ahead and... let's go ahead and investigate. So we're a 2 versus a 5. A 2 versus a 5. Let's see what we get from the Chaos Bag. And we get a skull, and that, of course, is... Number of ghoul enemies, there are none, so we succeed. Let me get the second clue. Yay. Okay. So, yeah, we might as well go ahead and do that. So we will throw in the 2 clues. Yep. Or do we? Do we throw in the 2 clues? Because, yes, I think that we do. Because we don't want to hang around here. So we've still got 1 action left. So we'll throw in the 2 clues. We'll flip this over. The door on the floor. You notice that the edges of your newly purchased rug are tattered and mud-stained. Finding this odd, you shift the furniture aside and pull back the rug. To your surprise, you see the door leading out of your study. You slowly turn the knob and the door swings open, revealing your hallway below. You clumsily jump through the doorway, landing kind of on your feet, but stumbling somewhat with the agility that you have on soft dirt. The door to the study slams shut above you, knocking you on the head on the way through. The smell of burning wood fills the narrow hall, intermingled with the scent of rot and decay. So put the set-aside hallway, cellar, attic, and parlour. Discard each enemy in the study. Place the investigator in the hallway and remove the study from the game. Okay, so we shall do all of that. So the study is gone. Doink. We're in the hallway. Whee! Flip the hallway. Easy to forget to do that because there's actually nothing you can do in the hallway. Yeah, basically. Even though it's got a shroud. So we are here in the hallway and we have one action left. And I'm thinking maybe we should have stayed in the study because it probably doesn't matter. But we are going to spend our money and we are going to bring out the machete. So actually, thinking about it, we probably should have stayed in the study and brought out the machete, thinking about it now. Because then if we do get any kind of enemy, we could have instantly defeated it. But anyway, too late now. So, okay, so we killed the rats. We got ourselves our second clue. We got ourselves into the hallway and we played the machete. So next time we'll get ourselves up to the attic. Let's see how we go here. Enemy phase. There are no enemies to speak of. So we move into upkeep. We get perception. Well, that's nice. That's good. Things are going well from that perspective. I'm now thinking the next thing we want to get at is hyper awareness so that we've got that ready to roll as well. Oh, I mustn't forget we've got On the Mend, which is a very handy card as well, but we don't need it at the moment. So, yep, things are going pretty well, I think, all up. Maybe, like I said, maybe we should have stayed in the study. Anyway, we didn't, but it doesn't matter. Let's see what we get in the Mythos phase. So the second Doom is down of 3. Let's see what the encounter deck has, and the encounter deck has rats. We should have stayed in the study. Doesn't matter. And we're going to kill that pretty quickly, so no big deal. Interesting, we got more rats. I did get rid of the rats. Okay, let's move into the investigation phase. 3 actions. On to Vincent. Okay, first action, we will attack the rats with the machete. So that's a 5 versus a 1. So unless we auto fail, we're going to get this. Let's see what we get. We get a -1, so we kill the rats. Dead. Second action, we will move up into the attic. La-di-da-di-da. Up to the attic. Yep. And when we enter the attic, there's a bloody carcass of a malformed beast in here. Oh my goodness. Blood drains slowly. And there's paint pots and all kinds of things. Oh, it's a mess. Take a horror. So we take a horror. Let's put the horror onto Dr. Milan Christopher. There we go. 1 action left. Let's go ahead and investigate. Do we investigate with perception? I think we keep perception because we might need it later. Let's just go ahead and investigate. 1 versus 5. 1 versus 5. Chaos Bag gives us a -3. That's easy win. So we get that clue and we get a resource. So there we go. Great. So, yep, pretty good. We killed the rats, we moved up to the attic, we took a horror, and we got one of the clues. Again, should have stayed in the study because we would have got the second clue, so we're just a little bit behind where we could have been. It's not going to make a big difference in the end, though. Anyway, so there we go. So we move into the enemy phase. There are no enemies to speak of. So we move into upkeep. We get deduction. That's good. That means that means we can speed things up in terms of getting the clues in the cellar, which is great. Which is good. So let's move into the Mythos phase. And there we go. There's the 3 Doom. There's the 3 Doom. So let's have a look and flip that over. Here we go. The lapse in time. Your house continues to change before your very eyes. The walls have decayed and the ground in many rooms has turned to dirt. It's almost as if you've been transported somewhere else entirely. Although every now and again you recognise elements of your former home. Oh, there's my signed copy of Grey's Anatomy, signed by the cast of Grey's Anatomy. Nice. Oh, there's my gold-plated bone saw that I got from the the Surgeon General. There we go, things like that. The lead investigator must decide either each investigator discards a card at random from his or her hand, or the lead investigator takes 2 horror. I am not taking 2 horror. That would then we would only need a rotting remains, and we'd be pretty much done. So we will lose a card at random. We can afford to do that. So let's do a random discard, and we lose. What did we just lose? Well, we can't see it, can we? Oh, we just lost a hyper awareness. Well, that's fine because we had 2 of them, so no problem at all. There we go. So we are now into Agenda 2A, the rise of the ghouls. The floor beneath you is giving way, and you see a vast network of tunnels twisting into the darkness below. Shapes and silhouettes of strange creatures move swiftly through the tunnels, trying to find a way up. You probably don't want to be here when they do. 7 Doom Threshold. There we go. So we're in the rise of the ghouls and the barrier. Now, I don't think I read this one, which is a glowing barrier blocks the path to your parlour. As you move towards it, intense heat forces you to back away. Picking up a handful of dirt, you toss it at the barrier and watch in horror as the dirt incinerates. Perhaps there's something in the cellar or attic can help. We need 3 clues, and when the round ends, investigators in the hallway may as a group spend the requisite number of clues to advance. Okay, so there we go. And we're already up in the attic. Now, before we move forward, of course, we mustn't forget we've got to draw an encounter card. And we get another enemy. That's 3 draws, 3 enemies. There we go, but no problem for us. And we got ourselves a ghoul minion. Hello! A ghoul minion who is going to be a dead ghoul minion before too long. But there we go. So lots of enemies, right? Yeah. So we haven't taken any. Well, we haven't taken any physical damage, and haven't really had any of our healing things either. So it's not like we can use that. But we haven't used our on the mend anyway, and you're only allowed 1 in your hand anyway. So no big deal. Okay, let's move into the investigation phase. 3 actions. I mean, the biggest problem with the 3 enemies that we're drawing is just basically it's slowing us down. It's a time tax, which means that to get to the top of the table in the Investigator games, particularly in the Gathering, is really about doing things very, very fast. So if you're getting enemies, it's just slowing you down. With Roland, though, for example, if you defeat an enemy, obviously you're getting a clue. So you've got that kind of synergy there, but that's not the case here. Okay, first action, let's go ahead and kill this ghoul minion. So we are a 5 with the machete, a 5 versus 2. I think we just go ahead and do that. 5 versus 2. Chaos Bag gives us a 0, so we kill the ghoul minion. So it's dead. That's the first action. Second action, let's go ahead and investigate again. So a 1 versus a 5. Chaos Bag gives us a -1, so we succeed and we get the second clue and we get another resource. So I've got 4 resources. We've got 1 action left. I'm going to take this final action to spend 2 and bring out hyper awareness. Not that one. Bring out hyper awareness. So now we can. We've got ways to drive our agility and our intellect with money, because now. I don't think we'll be spending that much money. We don't really need to. So hopefully we can build that up, and that's enough for us to evade the Ghoul Priest and get ourselves over to Leader Chandler, bring her on board, and then finish off the Ghoul Priest. That's the plan. Okay, so let's move into the enemy phase. There are no enemies. We've killed them all. Upkeep. Here we go. One of the new cards. Bizarre Diagnosis. Put 1 clue on your location, then heal 3 damage. Well, in the Investigator games, you're not going to do that unless you really need to, because that's just going to slow you down further. But it's got 2 intellect pips, so that's good. We've got plenty of those. Maybe some more fight pips would be handy. There we go. That's the upkeep phase. So we move into the Mythos phase. The first Doom of 7 is down. Let's see what we get from the good old encounter deck. And we get Crypt Chill. Yes, we get Crypt Chill. So here we go. So we might this is actually somewhere I have to make some difficult decisions here. So Crypt Chill is a 4. If you fail, we discard an asset, and they're all assets. And we are a 3, so a 1 down. Now, we could commit On the Mend to it, which would give us a 5 versus a 4. That's all we could do. So we could commit that, and then we could lose it. I suppose if we have to lose something, then we're going to have to lose hyper-awareness. We've already lost one hyper-awareness, but the question is it worth trying to commit On the Mend to it? Well, skulls are 0 already, so we're going to pass those anyway. It's really, if we get yeah, I mean, we're definitely look, let's put it in. Let's commit On the Mend. So we're going at a 5 versus a 4, so we've improved our odds somewhat. Let's see what the Chaos Bag is. And it's got a -4. There we go. So, no. So we'll lose hyper-awareness. That is really annoying because we were going to use that. But anyway, it's gone. So there we go. Ah, dear, oh dear. Now, in order to get On the Mend back, we would need to heal damage. Yeah, unfortunately, we haven't been damaged at the moment, so we won't be healing damage. Okay, so yes, let's move into the investigation phase. 3 actions on to Vincent. Okay, what do we want to do here now? Well, I think we take 2 moves and we move ourselves down to the cellar. Donk, donk, donk. Now, as we're going down the cellar, we check our medical bag again for a bone saw. Is it in there? We're not looking. We trip and we tumble down the stairs and we take a damage. Ouch. We will take the damage. We can take damage. No worries. So there we go. We take a damage when we get into the cellar. Oh, and I'm sorry. I forgot, of course. Speaking of which, we actually got our first victory point here in the attic for getting the clue. And the crowd goes wild. I completely forgot about that. There we go. That's the whole reason we're doing the Investigator Games, is to get victory points. Completely forgot. You can see it's been a while since I played The Gathering. Anyway, we're down here in the cell and we've got 1 action left. So let's go ahead and throw in deduction. So we are 4, 5, 6. 6 versus 4. Let's make that an 8. 8 versus 4, so we are 4 up. Let's see how we go. Chaos Bag gives us a skull, so we succeed. Yay! We draw a card. Yay! Ooh, 45 automatic. Nice. That was our final action. We get both clues because of deduction. And the crowd goes wild again because we get another victory point. Yes. So we've got all the victory points that we need. We've got all of the clues. So all we need to do now is really take on the Ghoul Priest. So the question is, can we evade the Ghoul Priest? Yeah, it's really annoying that we lost both of our hyper-awarenesses. 1 to a random discard and then 1 to bloody Crypt Chill. Yeah, so that's annoying. Okay, so we'll move into the enemy phase. There are no enemies to speak of. So we'll move into upkeep and we get our Wounded Bystander. We get our Wounded Bystander. There we go. Yes, with 3 damage. Oh, okay. This is going to slow things down. We didn't expect that. So, Wounded Bystander, 3 damage. Cannot leave play. Okay, no damage, discard it. When you take non-direct damage, at least 1 of it must be assigned. If it's defeated, suffer mental trauma. Wow, so good job we've got this because we can use Bizarre Diagnosis to do that. So that's what we will be doing because we don't want to take a mental trauma. We really don't. So there we go. Things have suddenly gone a bit haywire, but that's all right. We've got plenty of time. Second Doom is down of 7. So let's see what the encounter deck has. And the encounter deck has Frozen in Fear. Oh boy, not Frozen. Oh, Frozen. Look, it's better to get it now than when you're trying to take on the Ghoul Priest later. So first time you perform one of the following: move, fight, or evade. Each round it costs an additional action. Test 3 willpower, and we are 3, so not great, and we don't have a guts on board. We really need to get rid of this before we take on the Ghoul Priest. So that's really kind of messed things up a little bit for us. That's all right. So we might be spending some time in the cellar. To be honest, one of the ways we can get ahead in the gathering is if we draw one of the special ghouls, which is an extra victory point, which is kind of luck of the draw. So if we take a little bit of time, hopefully we might draw one of them and we can go and take them on. So it's because it looks like we're probably not going to be able to get Leech Chandler simply unless we take an attack of opportunity twice, which I don't really want to have to do. So we'll just have to see how we go. Okay, so yes, wow. How quickly things have changed, ladies and gentlemen. We went from things looking pretty good to we drew a wounded bystander and then frozen in fear. So things have gone from okay to a bit challenging. So we will see how we go. So let's move into the investigation phase. 3 actions on to Vincent. Now, with Frozen in Fear, it's move, fight, or evade. So we're not going to do any of those things. What are we going to do? Well, the first thing we are going to do is we are going to play Bizarre Diagnosis, one of your clues on your location. So we will put this back on here, which means that we remove this victory point. Now, yes, I could have moved back to the hallway and done it that way, but I actually want to stay because I'm hoping we might draw one of the ghouls, and I don't want to be taking damage moving back in, so it's just easier to get the clue. So place one of your clues on your location, heal 3 damage from an investigator or ally asset. So just a couple of things. He's not got that little ally trait like Milan Christopher, so he doesn't take up an ally slot, but he is an ally. Okay, so we can heal the 3 damage from the wounded bystander with our bizarre diagnosis, and so he's been healed. No damage, discard it. So we've healed that. So that was our first action. Whew. Okay, that's our first action. Okay. All right. Second action. Let's go ahead and investigate again. So, yep. So we are running at a 5 versus a 4. We're running at a 5 versus a 4, so it's actually not that high, is it? But we'll go ahead and investigate. We get a -1, so we succeed. We get the victory point back. Cry goes wild again. And we've got 1 action left. I think we stay here just at the moment. There's no reason for us to move. So what I might do for my final action is, so we could either play the 45 automatic. I'm thinking that might be a good idea because just in case we've got multiple enemies. So for the final action, let's spend the 4 and bring out the 45 automatic. So that's our go. And then at the end of test 3, well, we're a 3 versus a 3. Let's see what we get from the encounter deck. And we get an Elder Sign! Yay! We can heal a damage. Yep, we can heal a damage from ourselves. Yay! And actually, I just realized when we healed a damage before, I didn't do this. I didn't use our special ability. Which was after one of your card effects heals damage from an investigator ally, add one of the set aside on the men skills to that hand. I didn't do that, did I? No. There we go. There we go. So I should have done that before. But anyway, no big deal. We get rid of Frozen in Fear. We got it anyway. I'm sure you were all screaming at me, on the men, on the men, on the men. So we got on the men back, which is very nice. That is actually really, really good. So that means we've got some extra cards in hand. So pretty good round. We healed our poor beleaguered bystander, where we should have got ourselves back on the mend using our special ability. We then got back the clue. We got a resource. We then brought out the 45 automatic. And then because we got a elder sign in terms of frozen in fear, we succeeded, and we also healed the damage from ourselves. And we now we can't get another on the mend because you're only allowed one in your hand at any one time. But that's fine. And we also got rid of that frozen in fear. So pretty good. So what we really need to do now is get ourselves in a situation where we can take on the Ghoul Priest. I mean, I feel like we're actually pretty much there, to be honest. So next time, why don't we get ourselves up into the hallway? The only reason for waiting would be to see if we can draw into one of the special ghouls, which come up in the attic or the cellar, because that would give us an extra victory point. So we could hold out for that. Would be another thing to do. So we get medical text, which is nice, mainly because we're not going to put it in the hand slots, but because it's got a fight pip. So we move into the Mythos Phase 3 Doom. Let's see what the encounter deck has. And the encounter deck has a ghoul minion. That's not what we wanted. We wanted one of the other ghouls. But anyway, we got a ghoul minion. Oh dear. So we will move into the investigation phase. 3 actions onto Vincent. First action, let's fight this ghoul minion. So yeah, we'll just fight with the machete. So we are a 5 versus a 2. Chaos bag gives us a -1, so we kill that. That's our first action. What do we do? I guess second action, we move into the hallway. Third action, what do we do here? It'd be great to get another ghoul, wouldn't it? It's only let's not throw our clues in this time. So I'm just going to draw a card. Oh, vicious blow. Right. Okay. We're really, we're going to be able to kill this Ghoul Priest easily. So let's move into the enemy phase. There are no enemies to speak of. We'll move into upkeep and we get another bizarre diagnosis. So there we go. And then we will move into the Mythos phase, 4 of 7. Let's see what the encounter deck has. The encounter deck has Ancient Evils, put a doom on the current agenda. Okay, so that's now moved to 5. Okay, so I think the world's trying to tell us something here, that it's not going to happen. So we will move into the investigation phase. 3 actions onto us. So what do we do here? So we can draw more cards. But I'm reluctant to draw more cards because I'm worried that we might draw into our other weakness, and that wouldn't be great right now. So I think I might just take 3 resources. So we've got plenty of resources. I don't want to tempt fate like that. Okay. And I think we do got take on the Ghoul Priest now. Enemy phase, there are no enemies. Okay, we get another medical text. Yep, the world is definitely telling us something here. Let's throw in the 3 clues at the end of the round. And we will flip this over. Using the barrel from the attic. That was right, isn't it? End of round. Sorry, it's been a while since I've played the Gathering. When the round ends, yeah. Using the barrel from the attic, you carry ice and snow from the cellar and hurl it at the barrier. The barrier sparks and shudders as it consumes the ice, then hisses and fades out of existence. The barrier blocking passage into the parlour has vanished. Reveal the parlour. Put the set-aside Lita Chandler into play and spawn the Ghoul Priest in the hallway. So let's bring them out. So Lita Chandler in the parlour. Oh, hello, Vincent. How are you? Oh dear, I'm so sorry, but I think it might be a little bit difficult for you and I to work out. Well, anyway, best of luck next time. And the Ghoul Priest, hello, Vincent. Oh, hello, machetes, guns. Vincent, I've had this pain in my lower back and I was hoping you could have a look at it and we could be friends. I doubt that's going to happen. So yes, good old Ghoul Priest is on us. 5 damage per investigator. Okay. Let's move into the Mythos phase. The 6th Doom is down. Let's see what the encounter deck has. Oh, oh no. Oh, man. Now the Flesh Eater appears in the attic. Oh, boy. Talk about timing. I mean, we could have held off for another round, but, you know, what with the Ancient Evils and everything, it just felt like it wasn't a good idea. Anyway, never mind. Okay, let's move into the investigation phase. 3 actions onto Vincent. Here we are with the Ghoul Priest. Now, first of all, we are running at a 1 agility. He's a 4. We do have... What do we have? Do we have it? Oh, we've got on the mend. So we could use that to boost it up to 3, but it's not going to happen. So we're not going to be... unfortunately, be great if we could evade the Ghoul Priest, get Leader Chandler, or move up to the Flesh Eater, kill the Flesh Eater. But unfortunately... yeah, the only other way would be to, of course, move up to the attic, take 2 damage and 2 horror, and then take them both on. But I think in that situation, we're probably likely to buy the farm, I think, because we would probably get horrid. So we would take 2 horror. So we could probably get rid of Milan Christopher and take 1 horror, which means we'd have 5 left. Then we would need to... We could probably kill the Ghoul Priest in 2 actions. But then we would take another 2 horror. So that would get us to 3 horror. And then we could take on the Flesh Eater. But he's 4 fights, so he's pretty good. So we would have, yeah. So it's a real risk to do it that way. Oh, we should have revealed the pile, shouldn't we? Yeah, so that's risky because then we have to defeat both of them, and we would have used up our Vicious Blow and our Overpower and things on the Ghoul Priest. And on top of that, of course, I can't forget the fact that if we move into the attic, we take a horror as well. So whilst we could do it, I just feel like, you know, we would just end up going insane. It's possible, but it would really rely on everything going right. And I think, you know, if we had more cards, we had more fight cards, I just think it's probably not going to happen, which is disappointing, and it looks like we're not going to get Leader Chandler either. So I think the best thing to do is to close it off here and finish off the Ghoul Priest. So, yep. So first action, let's go ahead and fight. And we can use the machete for this, of course, because it's just the Ghoul Priest here. So let's go ahead and throw in Vicious Blow. So we're running at a 3 fight. I'm sorry, I've been saying throughout this 4 fight. Of course we're not. We're running at a 3 fight. Plus the machete is 4. And then that's a 5 with the Vicious Blow. We can make that a 7, can't we? Yeah, so that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 on a 4. That's 3 up. Yay! So that's 1, 2, 3 points of damage with the Vicious Blow. That's great. So 3 points of damage. Oh, no, not clues. Yeah. Ow! Okay, and we draw a card, obviously, for that. Get a magnifying glass. Well, yeah, whatever. Second action, we will go ahead again. So again with the machete. So let's throw in these cards. So what are we looking at here? We're looking at a 3, a 4, 5, 6, 8. 8 on a 4. Chaos Bag gives us another -1. So we succeed. And the Ghoul Priest goes down. Ah! There we go. And into the victory display. And the crowd goes wild. So there we are. Yeah, so kind of an anticlimactic ending for Vincent Lee. It's really a pity that the Flesh Eater came out so late. It's also a real pity that Leader Chandler also, we couldn't go and engage her because we lost all our hyper awarenesses. So things kind of went a bit pear-shaped towards the end, and we didn't get the opportunity to get that extra victory point. I just think we could have tried, but I think we would have just ended up taking way too much damage. So really that weakness of having a very low agility really made things very difficult towards the end. But that's the way it goes in the Investigator games. So thank you very much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Now, next time in the Investigator games, we will be taking Kaimani Jones through the Gathering, and I'm looking forward to that. But until then, I'm Krabby Terror 8. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.